Hey guys, Ben Ling here. If you are going through the process of considering a short-term rental property manager for a vacation house, this video is for you. I just went through this process for an asset in Northwest Florida in a beach community, and I learned a lot during the several days that I worked on this. I interviewed some of the large national property managers, and I interviewed some of the smaller local ones. They all bring different things to the table, but I hope that I can help you with your journey and your decision making process with a few things that I bring up in this conversation here. The first thing that I talk with all of them about, and I view this as most important, is revenue optimization. What do I mean by that? How much money are you getting per night that your property is occupied during certain times of the year? And how will that property manager dynamically change the pricing in order to capture that revenue? Vacasa ended up with a team of analysts, and their only job is to constantly evaluate rates of comparable properties in the area. And they set those rates to optimize the revenue. No other firm that I talked to had a capability that was even close to this. And Vacasa has a great advantage there because of the amount of data that comes to them because they rent so many houses and they're such a well-established player in the market. So, ultimately, you're trying to optimize your rent collections for this asset, assuming you're holding it for profit. And the rate optimization is the most important tool in your toolkit in order to achieve that end. And Vacasa was head and shoulders above anyone else because of the analytics that they had and their ability to change prices as the market dictates. Another thing that I looked at was systems. Again, the national companies were head and shoulders above the local companies. Vacasa has a national platform in place. They create a very smooth experience from the landlord and the tenant as well. I had exposure to the owner's portal. I thought it was best in class. And it was unmatched in any other property management software that I've seen. So I was very happy with the interface that the owners had as well for the properties. Another thing that was important is what's the experience of this property manager? Again, Vacasa came out on top with that. Vacasa booked more than 6 million nights sold last year. That's far more than any other property manager in the short-term rental space. And from this experience, they understand what problems can occur. They have systems in place that can cut those things off at the pass or react to them properly if they do happen. That there just isn't another competitor that has this type of institutional knowledge in the short-term rental space from the capacity of a property manager. And it hits a lot of things: guest screening, housekeeping, routine maintenance. All this stuff kind of falls in this experience bucket, and Vacasa won on that as well. Something that I didn't really think much of before I started this process is tax compliance. And Vacasa, all the national firms had a very turnkey tax compliance operation. And what I mean by that is me as the landlord, I don't have to worry about filling out forms, sending in checks, putting the right tax rates into the listings. Vacasa did all that for me as the landlord. And I think compliance with that is becoming more and more important as municipalities get more and more strict about enforcement of lodging taxes and other taxes that are associated with short-term rentals. Pricing, most of these firms came in close on pricing. Anything from 18 to 22% is what I saw. I was able to negotiate a slightly lower rates, and I would encourage you to negotiate lower rates as well, because keep in mind that these firms are competing in a fragmented marketplace for business. And if you have, especially if you have a very nice property, definitely fight for that lower management fee, and maybe be creative with it. Maybe say like the first year, I'll only pay maybe say 15% or something like that. But I urge you, if you have a very desirable asset, these firms want your business, and you should compete for. You should definitely push back if you feel like the pricing is high. Insurance was another very important aspect Vacasa offered something that none of the other firms offered. And what this was for a home of my size, I could pay an extra $8 per rental day. For it's like $1 million in coverage for it would go right on top of the policy that I have as an owner. So just like an extra peace of mind. I thought it was very well presented, and it's almost a no-brainer when you're renting things out for hundreds of dollars a night to add this extra layer of protection. Another thing that was created that Vacasa had was their method for reporting property damage. The other firms that I interviewed did not have this either. So basically, the deal is if a tenant self-reports damage to the property when they leave, Vacasa covers it, and they'll fix it at no cost to the tenants and at no cost to me as the landlord. And this goes up to like $3,000. However, if the tenant does not disclose damage and the cleaning crew comes through or someone comes through and notices the damage, Vacasa is going to go after that tenant to pay for that damage. So what does this do? This puts the tenant in a situation where they can be totally honest and disclose even the smallest damage, knowing that they're not going to have to pay for that. Me as the property owner, I'm very comfortable with that policy because it gives me a little more assurance that these small things will be taken care of and not build up over time. No other company had a policy that was similar to this. And I think the Vacasa tenants pay a small fee as part of their booking to cover this small amount of insurance. I think that's how this works. But this is a very creative and good way to help manage minor property damage that could be inflicted by tenants on the property. Another thing I liked about Vacasa that the other firms didn't really talk about much was Vacasa is not going to nickel and dime. They have free replacement of filters, batteries, light bulbs, things like that. I met face-to-face with their head of maintenance and one of the other techs. They came to the house to do a walkthrough to evaluate a lot of things, just like a very high level of attention to detail that those guys had. So those are some of the things that really differentiated the large national ones, Vacasa in particular, from some of the smaller ones. The smaller ones, they try to compete on local knowledge, but a lot of this information is being democratized through technology. So I think the local knowledge piece is kind of becoming less and less valuable. And what's becoming more valuable is the scale that these large companies have and the efficiencies that they're able to gain through that scale through things like pricing, service, customer interaction, landlord interaction. One of the things I thought was interesting, one of the smaller companies that I interviewed, they were very excited to send me something. They wanted to send me something like overnight or like FedEx, and they're really excited for me to look at this. So they sent it to me, and essentially it was a PowerPoint presentation of what they could have easily done on a Zoom call. And they kind of made a big deal about sending this and thought it was a huge benefit and put them in a good light. But when I saw that, I was like, these guys do not know how to leverage technology with me at the point of sale when they're trying to get me on as a client. I'm not really sure how much they'll be able to leverage technology as a property manager. And I'm not sure if I really want that type of mindset managing this valuable asset of mine. So that they thought that was a really nice thing, but it really worked against them. I did not mention that to them, but it was just an unusual thing for them to do. And it kind of knocked them out of the running. That's all I can really think of on this. I'm going to do another video about like the process of onboarding, which I think is important. Oh, another thing to mention, even though I did select Vacasa to do this for me, I got an offer on the property that I couldn't refuse. So I ended up selling this property before the first rental with Vacasa. So just full disclosure, that actually happened. But if that hadn't happened, Vacasa would be, I'd be working with Vacasa right now. If you have any questions about this, leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks.